Wow, so we have a new bombshell report from the Washington Post that basically confirms what we all already know. That the problems at the reflecting pool are not because of vandals, not because of any 900-foot slashes or gashes, as Donald Trump claims, but because of the shoddy craftsmanship and work that was done by these no bid contracts. This is the headline from the Washington Post. Reflecting bull peeling probably caused by application flaws, experts say. President Trump has blamed vandals, but a Washington Post analysis finds that the peeling tracks closely with stages of the renovation process. And look, Washington Post did a fantastic job looking at the visual analysis of what happened here. We're going to go into all of that and examine how exactly this all went wrong and why Donald Trump's claims of the vandals and the 900-foot gashes are completely false. But before we get into that, please make sure you like this video. Please make sure you give me a follow. I talk about politics and news. I'm out at the reflecting pool most days covering this on the ground for you guys. So please make sure you give me a follow. Okay, let's get into this. I did this analysis here on Twitter yesterday evening to really pull out the best pieces of this Washington Post analysis, which is really quite long. I'd still recommend you read it, but this is, I think, the most important information and relevant information to us all. So look, as I said, the Washington Post piece confirms what we all already know, that this was not because of vandalism or vandals. This was because of truly the shoddy work from this no-bid contract, specifically the Atlantic Industrial Coating folks, their subcontractor, Mid-America Industrial Coating. It really ended up being quite a disaster. But one of the great things about this Washington Post piece is that they included some very helpful visuals for you to see. If you have not been on the ground at the reflecting pool, which most of you probably have not, certainly not as much as I have. I've been there, I don't know, maybe a dozen times at this point. They included the spaces and places where this peeling had occurred, okay? So this is sort of the first overlay visual here. You can see here, this is the Lincoln Memorial side here. We have one spot, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 spots. The Washington Post found that this peeling was happening. And again, this is the World War II memorial side. They also showed a nice visual overlay of these 7 same spots and with images of what the peeling looked like. So we can see here, this is the peeling that occurred at spot number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. This is where I was really when the peeling first started. I was out there at the reflecting pool and I saw the peeling and I saw the pool, the paint flapping in the breeze. Okay, this is very obvious and apparent to everyone. And this, as we'll get to later, is what Jeanine Pirro and the Trump administration is charging former Olympian David Hearn with. They're saying that he went there and ripped up the pool. No. Okay, obviously, I don't know all the details of their particular case against him, but I can surmise, I can guess. But the reality is that, as David Hearn is arguing, that he simply touched the already ripped up pool, which, as the Washington Post dives into in this article, is really what happened. And the level of just incompetency is truly stunning. Okay, so we'll go down here. And again, look, the Washington Post outlined that these 7 places that had peeling were along these 7 seams, okay? It's where the material was applied in large rectangular sections, indicating likely problems in how it was installed, okay? Furthermore, this suggests that there were errors, significant errors in the application process of applying this top coating of the American flag blue. We'll get into the exact kind of specifications of this, but the Washington Post, as they note here, talked to 4 experts in waterproofing materials. Now, look, I've been out there a lot. I'm not an expert in waterproofing materials. I'm not an expert in rhino lining. I just kind of report what I see. But the Washington Post went out there, they did the legwork, and they said to these folks, hey, can you tell us what happened here? And these people got back and they said, yeah, this was a massive and monumental error on the part of the companies that were doing this. The Washington Post also then highlighted the sections where this peeling occurred. You saw that kind of first initial graphic where those spots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were highlighted. Well, they also show via visual analysis where those spots were. So you can see here, we'll zoom in a little bit. This is where spot number 1 is. And you can also see that this is the beginning of the process of the laying over of that top layer, right? You can actually see here a little bit the underlayer, this sort of more royal blue, and this is that top American flag blue layer. Now, what they're pointing to specifically is where the seam is in the pool. And when they laid that kind of top layer over it, it created tension that allowed for this ripping to take place, right? And that's exactly what we saw a few weeks ago, 3, 4 weeks ago, even at this point, with that reflecting pool blue paint flapping in wind. And by the way, this is exactly what I saw when I was just out there a few days ago. This paint was still flapping in the wind even after they drained the pool. So this is not a new problem. It is a continual and existing problem, and it certainly is a massive issue for the contractor, which, again, we'll talk about them and their no-bid contracts. The Washington Post, again, outlines, here's another spot and another spot where these seams are, and where essentially the paint was peeling off the pool. And finally, you can see here, all 7 spots are represented as they kept moving up the reflecting pool. They kept having more and more issues with the peeling and with the application of the lining. And really, it is just genuinely nuts. And look, as I said here, the same people who messed this up, the same people who did this rush job, and I'm not even going to totally blame them in particular, because the Trump administration deserves a lot of the blame here for giving out this no-bid contract. But this is what they said, or this is what the Interior Department said when giving out this no-bid contract, okay? They said, quote, "Only a limited number of pool contractors possess the qualification and equipment necessary to complete this project in time." And they messed it up. So the Department of Interior, the Trump administration, is saying these people were so good at their jobs, they were so talented, so full of expertise, that we needed to hire them to do this. And what do you know? What happened when they gave out this no-bid contract? $15 million of our taxpayer money. They messed it up. They messed it up. The paint was peeling. Again, not from vandals, as we have previously discussed. And as I said, too, this all makes the charges against David Hearn even more ridiculous, okay? As we know, on July 2nd, Janine Pirro said that National Park Service employees witnessed Hearn, quote unquote, forcefully and violently pulling at the liner with both hands and turning belligerent when told to stop. That description is genuinely nuts to me, okay? Again, Hearn says that he just simply was there. He kind of touched the pool lining, as actually did a lot of other people, a lot of other tourists. That's what they did as well. But that is the story here. They are charging David Hearn with forcefully ripping this up. But as the Washington Post analysis pointed out, that is absolutely not what happened. What happened was the coating was improperly applied and installed, and that led to the failure of the paint peeling and flapping in the wind. This is not because of vandalism. This is not because people made 900-foot gashes or slashes, or whatever you want to call it. This is because of the incompetence of the Trump administration. And as I mentioned earlier, I'd really recommend reading this article from the Washington Post, because they dive into, they do this step by step, but they dive into specifically what went wrong, the specific specifications of the failures here. And they even say, for example, this is at the 6th spot, okay? At the 6th spot, the Post identified the dark blue liner had peeled back to reveal the light blue liner. But the pipe liner, that sort of top layer, American flag blue, should be applied within 24 hours. But it was applied more than 24 hours after the primer, which experts said made it less likely that the two materials bonded properly. Again, to note, the Trump administration told us that these people were the experts of experts, that they were the only people that could do this job. And they couldn't even follow a basic technical guideline in the specifications of applying this application. It is remarkably incompetent, okay? And again, they have told us that this was because of vandals. But as they talked to experts, Washington Post talked to experts, all of them basically were like, no, like this is because of the way that the coding was applied. It is very clear to see that this is what happened and step by step. And look, as Rudy Stankowski, a pool operations expert, said, look, they have a window of time to get that next layer down. Otherwise, it's not going to adhere properly unless additional prep is done. If the seams, another person said, if the seams are the only place where the failure is occurring, it's strongly indicative of improper edge preparation, okay? Very clearly, there was failure on a massive scale related to the reflecting pool. And while Donald Trump wants to claim that this is because of vandalism or because people messed it up, it couldn't be further from the truth. So it remains to be seen what happens with David Hearn's case, with the other people who are charged with ripping up the pool and vandalizing the pool. But through this analysis of the Washington Post, which, by the way, I hope their attorneys use, it shows quite clearly in my mind that the reflecting pool mess and disaster is because of the incompetence of the Trump administration and the no-bid contracts that they handed out. And look, I'm going to keep going to the reflecting pool because they hired these same people who just failed on this job to do it again, to try to fix their mistakes. And who knows, will the algae come back? Will there be more ripping and peeling from these seams? Or maybe will they follow the technical specifications that they should have the first time? Okay, there are a lot of questions still to be answered. I will be there reporting live on the scene. And so because of that, I really appreciate all of your support and your likes, your follows. It really means a lot. But look, I'm going to keep tracking this story, and I hope you all do too. But for now, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And gosh, let's just hope the reflecting pool doesn't turn into even more of a disaster.